just be really nice if things stayed the same for 1 minute. Hey sailors, welcome back to Cruising as Crew. My name is Lucy and today we're going to be talking about why it is so hard to actually give up working on a cruise ship and why for many people it's the impossible task. But before we get started, I just want to remind you to click like and subscribe for more cruise ship content, and if you have anything in particular that you would like me to cover on these videos, then you can DM me over on Instagram at Cruising as Crew. But as for now, let's get into the video. So there are two types of people that work on cruise ships. There's the people that do it for the experience, and there are people who do it to actually make it their career. Now, usually it's people from the Western world, so the UK, Australia, America, that do it for the experience. Because with the exchange rate of our home currency, we can earn about the same amount at home as we can working on a cruise ship. Whereas if you're from a country in Africa or Asia, you can earn significantly more working on a cruise ship than you can do working in your home country. This video is aimed at the person that started working on cruise ships for the experience. Maybe they had the intention of doing it for a few contracts and then they would come home and get a real job. So now they find themselves in a position where they really don't want to quit their job on cruise ships, but they kind of feel like they should do. So today I'm going to break down why quitting cruise ships seems like the impossible task. If you have worked on ships, you will know that everyone says, this is my last contract. And then you'll go on the next ship a month later and see them on that ship and you'll be like, didn't you say your last contract was going to be your last contract? We've all done it, myself included. And the reason for this is, yes, working on ships is so amazing, but it's also really difficult. So by the end of your contract, whether that be 6 months, 9 months, you're tired. You're tired of your manager, you're tired of your teammates, you're tired of getting up at the crack of dawn, you're tired of the constant change. And it's funny that one of the things that I love about ships, the constant change, by the end of my contract, I'm like, it would just be really nice if things stayed the same for 1 minute. So it's usually towards the end of people's contracts that they're like, okay, this is my last contract. This is my last contract. But then what happens is they go home and it's all hunky-dory for like 1 or 2 weeks when they see their family and they're really busy catching up with people. But then that obviously stops because you've caught up with everyone. And then you have all this time to think about your life and analyse every decision you've ever made and think about what you're going to do in the future. And I feel like when you actually start thinking like, okay, that was my last contract, now what am I going to do? For a lot of people it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh my god, what am I going to do? Oh, and they like go into this spiral and then they just go back on ships because it's better the devil you know. And it's really scary for us crew members now because obviously in this climate with COVID-19 and not really knowing what's going to happen with the cruise ship industry, we're having to face that reality a lot sooner than we thought we would have to, as in I'm going to get a real job now because we don't know what's going to happen with the cruise ships. I started this year off on Virgin Voyages' brand new ship, so I joined the end of Jan and I came home the end of March because of COVID. And for 2 months straight I was working like pretty much every day, really long hours, being constantly stimulated, surrounded by people. There's always something to do, and then I came home into lockdown. I mean, saying that was a big adjustment is an understatement. I had a really hard time with it. Because as I said, you go from working at 1,000,000 miles an hour to coming home and literally drop down to 0. And I know that so many people who have come home from ships have found this. You have this when you come home on a normal vacation in normal like circumstances. You have the adjustment of going from 1,000,000 miles an hour to slowing it down. But the thing is, you know that your vacation is coming up, so you can like mentally prepare that you're going to slow down. Not many of us knew that we were going to be sent home from the ships. So it was a real shock and no one really had any time to prepare themselves for the slowdown. It was like someone just slammed the brakes on and you're just meant to adjust. But getting bored at home is definitely one of the main reasons why people go back for another contract instead of just staying at home. But there is also some deeper reasons. One of the reasons is people's expectations. So I've been working on ships for 4 years. So for 4 years, I've been posting pictures on Facebook for my like friends and family to see of me going to different locations, meeting new people, having the time of my life. And because of this, people expect you to continue having this fun life. People always expect you to have something fun lined up. And I experienced this the other day. I went to the pub with a friend, and on another table was a group of guys that were in the same year as me at school. And I've got them on Facebook. So they all got up to leave and walked past us, so stopped to say hello, and like we had a quick catch up. And they were saying, oh, you know, we've seen your travels on Facebook, like you look like you've been having a great time. What's next? Like, have you got any trips planned? Like, what's happening, and where are you going next? And I didn't want to go into the whole like, I don't know, because cruise ships and whatever. So I just said, no, I haven't got anything planned. And the look of like disappointment when I said that, it was like one of them actually took a step back and was like, oh, okay. Like, they weren't offensive, but I was like, they were definitely expecting me to say like, oh, I'm going backpacking. And I was like, bloody hell, like, even in a pandemic, I'm expected to like have a trip planned or have some exciting adventure planned. So I've like been put into this box of the person who always has something going on. And don't get me wrong, like, it's a nice box to be in. And I kind of put myself in that box because that's what I've chosen to share on Facebook. So I've done it to myself. But I just found it really interesting that even with like everything going on in the world, people still have the same expectations of each other. And I'm not gonna lie, it's addictive. When you're sat with someone and they ask what you do for work and you say, oh, I work on cruise ships, and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, that's so cool, tell me more. That is so addictive. Like, the fact that people are so impressed by what you do, and it's just because it's something a little bit abnormal. But I'm not gonna lie, it does make you feel a bit smug. You're like, yes. When actually, I'm a shop assistant. But I choose not to say I'm a shop assistant. I choose to say I work on cruise ships, because people aren't as impressed when you say I'm a shop assistant. So people being impressed is definitely something that's really addictive and really lovely. It's a nice little stroke to the ego. And if you decide to not work on cruise ships and come home and get a normal job, you aren't going to get the same reaction. So you're basically taking yourself off that pedestal that people have put you on. And that in itself is really scary. Which is why, and that in itself is really scary. And the longer you work on cruise ships for, the harder it is to give up, because you get used to that reaction that people have. So the transition to coming home is really hard, because not only do you have to get used to being in one place, not meeting new people all the time, having a slower pace of life, having loads of time on your hands because you finish work at 6 p.m. rather than 10 p.m. You also have to deal with the transitioning of boxes. You know, if you come home from the ships, you're no longer the person that's like always traveling and always doing these fun stuff. You're gonna be moved into a different box in people's minds, which is fine, but it's just a really difficult transition, because I wouldn't necessarily class myself as someone that cares what people think, but everyone likes it when people are interested in what they do. Everyone loves to feel interesting. So if you tell someone something and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing, tell me more. I don't care who you are, you're gonna get addicted to that. And because people put you in that box, working on cruise ships does kind of become your identity. So you are giving up your identity a little bit when you decide to quit ships for good. And obviously as humans, we look for what is familiar to us. So even if, you know, we get to a stage in our lives where we're sick of working on cruise ships, we're sick of the change, we're sick of the management, we're sick of being away from home and missing events, like missing weddings and birthdays and all of that, it's somewhat easier to do that again than face the change that comes with staying at home. It's better the devil you know. It's so much easier to just do what you know, even if that is actually harder. It's like when people stay in a really bad relationship and from the outside, you're like, your life would be so much better if you just left. But it's so much easier to just stick with what you know. And it's funny because at one point, working on a cruise ship was so far out of my comfort zone, and now staying at home is so far out of my comfort zone. And I think it's actually been really good for me to stay at home for 5 months during the COVID pandemic, because it's made me realise, actually, I can stay at home and it's fine. I mean, obviously things aren't fine at the moment, but staying at home is fine. But I think the thing I always get scared of is it's so difficult to push ourselves out of our comfort zones, that there is a part of me that's scared if I come home, I'll never leave again. Because even when I come home on vacation, like in normal circumstances, you know, without COVID, if I stay home for longer than 6 weeks, I start to get into a routine, I start to get used to having my own space, having loads of storage, eating nice food, seeing my friends, enjoying the slower pace of life. And once you get used to that, it's so hard to pull yourself back out of it to go and live in a shoe cupboard and work every hour God sends. So I guess when I think about quitting cruise ships, there is a part of me that's like, well, if I quit cruise ships and I come home and get a job, is that it? Will I ever leave? And I know it's not it, and I know that's it sounds so stupid, but it's actually a real concern. And I've spoke to a lot of friends in kind of the same situation as me, and it's also a concern of theirs. So let me know in the comments if you are feeling the same. And then the other thing is FOMO. Fear of missing out. So working on ships makes you realise how small the world is, which is a great thing. It almost gives you too much choice, and then you get FOMO. It's like, well, if I work on ships, I'm going to be missing out on my friend's birthday, my friend's wedding, on just life at home. And if I work at home, I'm going to be missing out on seeing all these countries and meeting all these new people and learning all these new things. And if I want to quit ships, then maybe I'll move to Australia. But if I move to Australia, then I'll be missing out on this. So ships is great, but I feel like I'm almost spoilt for choice now. After I finished my last contract on Oceania, before I even knew that I was accepted for Virgin, I was thinking, okay, like, I need a break from ships. But it never occurred to me that I could just go home and get a job at home. It was like, oh, well, if I'm not working on ships, then I need to move to Australia or go backpacking around South America or move to Canada, or I need to do something that's really wacky. And I love my home. I love my family, like, you know, have no problems at home, very lucky. So I don't know why coming home for a long period of time wasn't an option that I considered. It was like, I have to do something outrageous that people won't necessarily expect, or maybe they will expect, and I need to do it because I need to fulfill people's expectations. And it's only actually recently, when I've been at home in quarantine and, you know, we've all had time to reflect and really think about things, and I'm like, I think I do care about what people think. But it's at like a subconscious level, maybe. Until recently, I hadn't realised that I was maybe making those decisions because I felt like I had to live up to people's expectations. But maybe I was. And it's really, it sounds a bit thick, but was I doing it because I actually wanted to, or was I doing it because that's what I thought I should do? You know? And then the other thing with too much choice is you just end up not making any decision. I think they did a study, I don't know who ran the study, but it was like these women went shopping and they were told to buy jam, and the supermarket had 6 brands of jam, and 92% of women, I think, bought jam. And then they had another group of women who went shopping and were told to buy jam, and they'd got 24 brands of jam. And I think it was like 99% of people didn't buy jam because there was just too much choice. So the thing is, if there's too much choice, we just won't make a choice. And I feel like that's why people go back on the ships, is because a lot of people come home and feel like, well, I can't just stay at home, I've got to do something else. And then when they start looking at their options and realizing how many they do have, it's like, I'm just gonna go back on the ships again. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm so grateful to have the options that I have and everything that I've done, and it's amazing. But sometimes it is a bit like, oh my God, I don't know which one to pick, I don't know what to do. So we have comfort zones, FOMO, boredom of being at home, the expectations of other people. So those are just a few reasons why it's so hard to actually quit working on cruise ships for good, and why a lot of us say it's our last contract, but it's actually not. And there's absolutely no shame in it. Like I said, I have done it, I do it. But I think it's really important for crew members who aren't necessarily wanting to work on ships for the next 10 years to come up with a plan of what they're going to do when they get sick of it. Because as much as I love cruise ships, I will get sick of it. Like any job, you know, you get sick of it eventually. And when I get sick of it, then I will decide to come home. And it's going to be really important for me to have a plan of what to do when I come home, so I'm not like, oh, I'll just go back again. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments if you are thinking this too, going through this as well, so I know that I am not alone and psycho. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please hit subscribe if you are enjoying these videos, and I will see you in the next one.